Hello tankers, this is Taugrim. Today we're looking at the E50M. This is a German tier 10 medium tank and the heavier of the two German medium lines. This tank is the big brother to the E50 that we looked at in the previous video. And I've got a lot of good footage to show you here, both in terms of things that I do well and mistakes that I make. Now you'll notice in our initial deployment that there's a T-62 to my east and he's flexing to the west. So I see that there are a lot of tanks rushing field and also heading toward the west side of the city, and I don't want to follow the lemming train because we really do need someone to cover the 8, 9, and 0 lanes. Now I get an early spot on this light tank, and the T-62 and I managed to tag him once each, so he's now one-shottable. And then the T-62 ends up driving to the west, so I'm stuck in the awkward position of being the only person watching the 8, 9, and 0 columns, and so I can't really leave. I need to kind of hang out here and spot and make sure we don't get flanked, and also to protect our arty. But as the game begins to unfold, you can see we're already down 2 tanks, so I realize I can't sit back here passively and wait for tanks to drive into my gun. I need to go create opportunities for myself and also try to figure out their deployment here in the 8, 9, and 0 lanes. And as I come up around the corner here, it turns out that one of their tanks was pushing along here, and my tank is really not angled meaningfully, and I take a shot in the middle of the lower front glacis, which is a big weak spot. We are down 0 to 3, so I need to engage this tank and get my gun active. I make a mistake here. You'll watch, like, I side scrape, which is the right thing to do, but I pull out more than I need to. I just need to expose enough of this hull to have a reasonable shot at penetrating. But in this particular case, I pulled back a little bit too much and ended up taking another damaging shot. And there's no reason why I should be trading one for one with this guy or with any tank, if I can avoid that situation. You'll notice here, instead of waiting for the shot to become available, I go ahead and pull in. I want to make sure that the tanks to the west of us don't have shots on me, and moreover that I'm not making the life of the arties easy. If I were an enemy arty on the other side, I'd be either aiming for the tanks out in the field in the northwest corner, or I would be shooting at me since I'm the only tank that's shown up on this flank and I was out in the open. Now the Type 61 is facing towards some of the tanks to the west, so I get a shot on his rear, and then I notice that that light tank is at low health, so I go ahead and finish him off. The Tier 10 mediums all use ACPR, so the velocity of the shells is super fast. It makes it really easy to lead out targets at range. And notice right here, right before that Type 61 fires at me, I angle my hull slightly to the right. That's to get to that 15-degree optimal angling that you can do based on the armor on this tank. And by angling the lower front glacis, I make it harder for the player to penetrate. Now, I'm hoping to get some flanking shots here, but there's too much building cover, and I kind of have two options. I can either head to the west or northwest and hope to cut those players off, but I opt to stay in the 0 lane because I want to go deep into their base, spot their arties, and help turn the match in our favor. A really important thing here is I'm not hitting any of the destructible terrain. I'm not hitting any of the cars, walls, or trees because I don't want to give them any idea exactly where I am if I'm making a run at their base. And I definitely, sure as heck, don't drive into their cap. That's a common mistake you'll see players make. If I drive into their cap, they'll have a pretty good idea of where I am. I'm basically spotting myself for them. And in a lot of cases, if you're in the cap, you'll see the first shot advantage, meaning enemy tanks, if they want to reset me because they have 100 seconds to do so, will know where I am, so they can kind of pre-angle their aiming reticle as well as their hull so that they can hit me and deflect any shots that I might have. And because I don't know where they're coming from, there's time where I have to try to line up a shot and hit them. So it's really about the first shot opportunity or advantage. You'll lose it in a lot of cases if you're the one seeing in the cap and you don't know where they are. But because I've opted not to go into the cap, getting some flanking shots on their opponents, and this is really disruptive toward them because they know they're taking shots in the rear now. And then the question for them becomes, do they turn around and engage me and thereby expose their tank, hulls and turrets to the one tank that we have left in the city, which is the Centurion 7-1 played by a Bulba player. And you'll notice as I set up the second shot here, I'm wiggling quite a bit, and that causes me to juke a shot from the Yak Tiger, and I finish off the M103, and then the E4 tries to rush me here, and I get a shot on the lower front glacis as this player is coming up over the hill, and then I immediately shift my hull angling to about 15 degrees, and I'm moving back and forth, and this is to disrupt the player's aiming, and I bounce a shot off the mantlet, get another shot here in the lower front glacis, and In this tank, you're not particularly fast. You can't necessarily always circle strafe targets, and in this case, I don't want to push too far forward because I know there's a bat chat on the other side of the hill. But by locking that player up, I know that I have an easy kill shot on the cupola, and so we've gone from a situation where we were down several tanks, and we're now up pretty big. I know the last player, this bat chat by a driver named Brownie, he's a good player, so kind of need to be careful. Now, based on where my hit points are and the alpha of his gun, it's possible that he can kill me with 2 shots, probably more likely 3, but I need to be aware of that. The Bulba player, as it turns out, he's also at very low health, and if we get knocked out, there is the chance that Brownie could anchor a big comeback for their team and win the match. I will say this, about the armor for the E50M. It's not as strong relative to the E50 at tier because the armor layout between the two tanks is essentially identical, and it's basically the same as the tier 8 heavy King Tiger, which is to say against tier 10 tanks, which you face a lot more of in the E50M compared to the E50, it's not so good. You'll notice there, unfortunately, I didn't land penetrating shots on the bat chat, but I did at least manage to track him and to burn his repair kit. And it's interesting, objectively speaking, I don't have elite hand-eye coordination or twitch skills, but this is really much more of a thinking person's game, making the right decisions consistently and making sure to be placing yourself in a position where your gun is active as much as possible without putting yourself at undue risk. Alright, so thankfully, the Bulba player and I are able to track down the bat chat. We don't let him have any room to try to reload, and I end up getting a Ace Tanker Mastery badge. And this is kind of an odd thing because I've had games where I've dealt significantly more damage and ended up with a first class badge, but I think I got it because of the damage that I did to tier 10 tanks and also the spots and the spotting damage that I did late in the match by flanking them and getting into their base. Based on your feedback, the next tank we're going to look at is the excellent Russian tier 6 medium, the T-3485, and after that the tier 8 T-44. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.